Revelations. Announcement. His Excellency the President of the Senate, there will be a meeting of the Senate Committee on Appropriations with the chairman of all standing committees as scheduled below. Thursday, 15th October 2020, venue conference room 022 Senate building. Please endeavor to attend. Signed, Barrow Jibrin, Chairman. So I don't know how this is going to work out. The first letter is saying there shall be and it's mandatory. And this one is appealing to, so it's for the chairman to find a balance. Petitions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Princess.
Petition, Mr. President, I apologize.
You say point of order on his petition?
I have is point of order. I don't know if I should start now, I should wait a little bit.
Do you have a petition with you? Okay. So which point of order? Go ahead with your point of order. Senator Rogide, please allow her to move her point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm a bit anxious. That is why. Mr. President, I want to come under Order 43. This is a personal explanation. Mr. President, by indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there is no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought before, nor may debates arise upon explanation. The term of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, with your kind permission, may I continue, please?
Go ahead.
Mr. President, my area, my zone, and indeed the nation has had a horrible experience, and that experience is flood. This flood came to its worst in 2012. Mr. President, dear colleagues, the urgent to establish an intervention fund for flood prevention and victim relief in order to mitigate the devastating effect of climate change and rising sea and water level in coastal and flood-prone areas of Nigeria. Mr. President, a motion was brought 2 weeks ago in this regard. This very motion talked about intervention. This particular one talks about the need to have prevention. Mr. President, 2012, there was a study conducted by United Nations. The study clearly stated that there is need to have preventive measures. In regards to this, the United Nations invested $1.4 million in the studies and came out with several methods, if put in place, will help to stop the flood. to a reasonable measure. Mr. President, this motion attempts to address the need to have preventive measures, and those preventive measures requires intervention fund that will ensure that both the flood victims and the flood itself is contained. Mr. President, this motion has a bill that is very, very comprehensive. And so in the details of that, Mr. President, I intend to submit. But this is just a summary that calls for the need to have intervention fund for prevention, for prevention of flood, and to ensure that we have permanent stoppage and minimize effects of climate change and flood effects. Mr. President, dear colleagues, this is what this motion is all about. I so submit.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished Senator Stella Adaze Odua, for that submission. But because you have come under our standing order 43, it is not, the motion is not open to debate. This is by way of informing us and indeed the authorities. Let me at this point say that I agree with you that we need resources to not only try to prevent, but even to undertake studies really, because we need to have scientifically supported approaches rather than just reacting in a fire brigade approach. We should identify those flood-prone areas and why they get flooded and how we can mitigate the flooding, and that requires some fund. I believe that this is a worthwhile venture and is something that government should do to ensure that this perennial flooding that we experience is minimized or even controlled completely. So thank you very much for that intervention. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, before going into the first business of the day, Mr. President, I would like to formally report that yesterday between 4 p.m. and 4:30, the minority leader, distinguished Senator Abaribe, and myself were directed by the Senate President to meet and engage anti-SARS protesters who had blocked the outer gate of the National Assembly. We met there and with a view to pacifying them and also extending our commiseration with them over what happened. They explained that in the course of their peaceful demonstrations, they were accosted by some hoodlums who they alleged were directed by the police to attack them. Somehow they were able to weather the storm and assembled in front of the National Assembly to express and also inform the National Assembly of their travails. We commiserated with them, sympathized with them, and received verbally the complaints that they wanted to submit to the National Assembly. They are complaining of damages to their vehicles and some physical engagements and some physical injuries, which some of them sustained. Unfortunately, there are no major injuries or even violent death. We implored them to submit a catalogue of their complaints and the damages that they have been inflicted upon them, so that these ones can be conveyed to the appropriate authorities for intervention. Today, the minority leader, as we arranged yesterday, was there on the ground to see and receive the catalogue of complaints. Unfortunately, those complaints were not ready. So whenever they are ready, the leadership is going to compile them and submit them to the relevant authorities for attention. I just wanted to inform my colleagues of what had happened, so that we put this particular issue on record. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues.
No, thank you very much, Leader. The Senate took a motion sponsored by Senator Oloremi Tinubu on the challenges that we faced, especially with respect to the SARS activities across the country. And of course, we took far-reaching resolutions. Nigerians, let me say, have the right to peaceful demonstration when they feel very strongly about issues. They can do so to call the attention of the leaders of this country for the appropriate action to be taken. I believe that the government has responded. SARS has been disbanded, and almost all the five, in fact, they said all the 5 demands of the protesters have been accepted. What I will add here is, if such demands have been accepted, then we should expedite taking action to actualize them. I believe that when protesters' demands are met, their goal should have been achieved. And therefore there is need for our compatriots to go back home and give government the chance to quickly and expeditiously implement those demands. The case has been done perfectly well. The National Assembly, both chambers have identified with the protests that they are legitimate protests and legitimate demands. I think the next vital step is for the protests to stop, because the initial reasons for the protests have been accepted as facts, and government is trying to do everything possible. And I will urge government, and that is including us, we should push the executive arm of government to ensure that those demands of the protesters that the executive side had accepted to implement are implemented as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Ekwenife on the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission Act Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB 291, first reading.
Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act, Cap N108, Elephant 2004, Amendment Bill 2020, SB 291, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Anai Rochas Okorocha on the Financial Strategy Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Financial Privacy Bill 2020, SB 508.
That man near the camera, please, can you put your mask? Yes, you. Put your mask. Don't pull it down, please. Clerk of the Senate, have you read? Financial Privacy Bill 2020, SB 508, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of our bill signed in the name of distinguished Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari on the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 530, first reading.
1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 530, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ahmed Babba Keita on the Federal College of Education Act, Repeal and Re-Enactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal College of Education Act 1998, Repeal and Re-Enactment Bill 2020, SB 531, first reading.
Federal College of Education Act 1998, Repeal and Re-Enactment Bill 2020, SB 531, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Barau Ibrahim Jibrin on the Labor Transportation Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Labor Transportation Bill 2020, SB 532, first reading.
Labor Transportation Bill 2020, SB 532, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on National Identity and National Population on the screening of the following persons for appointment as Chairman, Commissioners of the National Population Commission. They are as follows. Number 1, Nasir Isa Farra, Nasarawa, Chairman. Number 2, Ibrahim Mohammed, Bauchi, Commissioner. Number 3, Ajayi Ayodeji Sande, Ekiti, Commissioner. Number 4, Honorable Joseph Kwali Shazin, FCT, Commissioner. Number 5, Garba A.G. Zakari, Kafin Hausa, Jigawa, Commissioner. Number 6, Honorable Engineer Bala Almubanye, Katsina, Commissioner. Number 7, Jedado Razak Follow Show, Kwara, Commissioner. Number 8, Mrs. Bimbola Salu Hudeyin, Lagos, Commissioner. Number 9, Ali Silas Agara, Nasarawa, Commissioner. Number 10, Mohammed Chisu Abdullahi Dattijo, Sokoto, Commissioner. Number 11, Malam Aliu Mohammed, Yobe, Commissioner. And number 12, Mohammed Mottaqarini, Zamfara, Commissioner. The Chief Senators will recall that the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief was referred to the committee on Wednesday, 30th September 2020. Mr. President, we may wish to invite distinguished Senator Saeed Ahmed Al-Khali, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
But he's not here. Who is presenting on his behalf? Oh, okay. Distinguished Senator Saeed Al-Khali to be represented by Senator Farid.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Suleiman Abdul Kwari, Kaduna North. I move, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on National Identity and National Population on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as chairman and commissioners of the National Population Commission. 1. Nasir Isa Kwara, Nasarawa State, Chairman. Ibrahim Muhammad Bauchi, State Commissioner. Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday from Ikiti State, also as Commissioner. Honorable Joseph Kwali Shazin, representing FCT as Commissioner. Garba A.G. Zaka, Kafin Hausa, representing Jigawa State as Commissioner. Gidado Razak, following Shaw, Kwara State, also as Commissioner. Engineer Bala Almubanye, representing Katsina State, also as Commissioner. Mrs. Bimbola Salu Hundei, representing Lagos State, as Commissioner. Ali Silas Agara, from Nasarawa State, Commissioner. Mohammed Chiso Abdullahi Betijo, Sokoto State, Commissioner. May Aliyu Muhammad, Yobe State, Commissioner. Muhammad Muttaka Rini, from Zamfara State, Commissioner. I so move, distinguished colleagues.
Okay, Senator Abubakar Kyari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Abubakar Kyari, Senator representing Borno North. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on National Identity and National Population on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as chairman and commissioners of the National Population Commission. The list as mentioned by the mover of the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive the report of our Committee on National Identity and National Population on the screening of the following of the persons named, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may lead the report, distinguished chair. Present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The Senate, at its plenary on Wednesday, 30th September 2020.
Mr. Chairman, you don't have to read everything in the report. Maybe you can summarize it. Thank you.
Consider the request of Mr. President, which it was duly noted for the appointments that were made pursuant to Section 154, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 as amended. After referral, the nominees were invited by the committee and they were interviewed, and after the explanations received, their detailed CVs following circulation were also screened, and the observations and findings of the committee are captured on page 21 on pages 22 to 21, where all the committee's findings are stated. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I go straight to the recommendations of the committee. Which is on page 22. The committee, having thoroughly and carefully conducted the screening exercise, was satisfied with qualifications and general performance of the 12 nominees. Accordingly, the committee hereby recommends the following for confirmation by the Senate. 1. Honorable Isa Kwara, MNI, as chairman representing Nasarawa State. Ibrahim Muhammad as commissioner, member commissioner of the commission. Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday, member representing Ikiti State. Honorable Joseph Shazin, member representing FCT. Garba Eji Zaka, Kafin Hausa, member representing Jigawa State. Honorable Engineer Bala Banyi, FNLC, member Katsina State. Gidado Razak Folorunsho, member Kwara State. Bimbola Salu Hundein, member representing Lagos State. Ali Silas Agara, member representing Nasarawa State. Mohammed Chiso Abdullahi Dattijo, member representing Sokoto State. Mai Aliyu Muhammad, member representing Yobe State. Mohammed Muttaqarini, member representing Zamfara State. Prayer. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we pray that the Senate do confirm the nomination of these 12 nominees as chairman and commissioners of the National Population Commission. We do submit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairman. Deputy Chief Whip.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I think mine is just to say that in view of the penchant for people to sometimes misinterpret our work, the committee did a very fantastic job and told us at paragraph 4 some observations that the nominees possess the requisite qualification, there was no petition against them, and security checks were made and they were all found fit and proper. I thought maybe we should also highlight this properly so that it is clear that we have followed the constitutional procedure and our due diligence has confirmed all that needs to be confirmed. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any comments? I just want to observe, thank you very much, Chairman, for the report, and of course, we commend you and the committee. Your recommendation, after the first one, the Honorable Chairman, I think for the records, we should correct the appointment, the recommended appointment as commissioners, because that is what is requested of us, not member. They should be commissioners for our records. Well, if there are no other, so Secretary, please take note of that. If there are no other comments, Leader of the Senate will resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I move the motion for this distinguished chamber to resolve into the committee of the whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it.
No, to resolve. Yes, resolve. It's parliamentary. Yes. Oh, you are going to
Distinguished colleagues, we start with approval at this point. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Honorable Nasir Isa Kwarra, MNIM, for appointment as chairman of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Ibrahim Mohammed for appointment as Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Honorable Joseph K. Shazim for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Garba A. G. Zakar Kafin Hausa for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Honorable Engineer Balabanye, FNSE, for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Gidado Razak Folorunsho for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Bimbola Salu Hundai for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Ali Silas Agara for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mohammed Chiso Abdullahi Dattijo for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mai Aliyu Muhammad for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Muhammad Muttaka Rini for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I move the motion for this distinguished chamber to resume plenary for the chairman to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion.
Those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on National ID Card and National Population On the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as chairman and commissioners of the National Population Commission, and approve the nominations of one Nasiru Isa Kwarra, Nasarawa State Chairman, Ibrahim Mohammed, Bauchi State Commissioner, Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday, Ekiti State Commissioner, Honorable Joseph Kwali Shazin, FCT Commissioner, Garba A.G. Zakar Kafin Hausa, Jigawa State Commissioner, Honorable Engineer Bala Almu Banya. Is it Banya or Banya? Banya. Secretariat, please take note. It's Banya, not Banya. Yes, Banya. Honorable Engineer Bala Almu Banya, Katsina State Commissioner, Gidado Razak Folorusho, Kwara State Commissioner, Mrs. Bimbola Salu Udei, Lagos State Commissioner, Ali Silas Agara, Nasarawa State Commissioner, Mohammed Chisu Abdullahi Dottijo. Dottijo? It's supposed to be Dottijo, not Dottijo. It's supposed to be an A, D-A. Dotti and T-I, J-I. Dottijo Sokoto State Commissioner, Mai Aliyu Muhammad Yobe State Commissioner, Muhammad Muttaka Limi, Zamfara State Commissioner, as Chairman and Commissioners of the National Population Commission. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you very much. Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Nasiru Isa Kwarra for appointment as Chairman of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Nasiru Isa Kwarra is hereby confirmed as Chairman of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ibrahim Mohammed for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Ibrahim Mohammed is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Ajayi Ayodeji Sunday is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Honorable Joseph Kwali Shazin for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Honorable Joseph Kwali Shazin is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Garba A.G. Zakar Kafin Hausa for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Honorable Garba A.G. Zakar Kafin Hausa is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Honorable Engineer Bala Almu Banye for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Honorable Engineer Bala Almu Banye is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Gidado Razak Folorusho for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Gidado Razak Folorusho is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mrs. Bimbola Salu Udei for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mrs. Bimbola Salu Udei is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ali Silas Agara for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Ali Silas Agara is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mohammed Chiso Abdullahi Dattijo for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mohammed Chiso Abdullahi Dattijo is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mai Aliyu Muhammad for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mai Aliyu Muhammad is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Muhammad Muttaka Rini for appointment as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Muhammad Muttaka Rini is hereby confirmed as a Commissioner of the National Population Commission. Thank you, distinguished colleagues, and congratulations to the Chairman and Commissioners of the National Population Commission. We pray for God's guidance and we urge them to be very focused. Our country is due for census. The last census was conducted, I think, in 2006. And this is an exercise that is supposed to be undertaken every 10 years. We need to know how many we are exactly, and that is going to aid us in our planning for developing our country. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the resumption of the debates on the 2021 Appropriation Bill 2020 on the third allotted day. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate commenced debates on the 2021 Appropriation Bill on Tuesday, 13th October 2020. So far, 42 distinguished senators have contributed. Further debate was deferred until the next legislative day, which was today. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the Senate do resume the debate on the 2021 Appropriation Bill 2020. So move.
Our distinguished colleagues, before we start, let me also remind us that today is the last day, in the third day of the allotted days for the debate on the general principles of the 2021 appropriation bill. So we have a list of 24 senators who have signified their interest to speak today. But after I take this, any senator who might have missed his opportunity either on Tuesday or yesterday, Wednesday, would have the chance to also make his or her contribution. But let me also remind us that it is 3 minutes per person, and the Chief Whip, I'm sure, is very ready. So let's try to keep to our time. The first on the list is Senator Isa Shaibulau. Not here. Senator Francis Fadaunsi Adenigba. Senator Francis Fadaunsi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my own contribution on this 2021 budget proposals by the federal government, the budget called Budget of Economic Recovery and Resilience. Going through all the discussions by my colleagues and the contribution by the public, I have to
start on a very critical look at the proposed budget. And the budget raised a lot of questions than answer. It is very, very laughable that there is an increase of 27% over the last year budget that performed below 40%. The benchmark of oil, the major source of our revenue, is 25.5% and is put at $40. Average exchange rate, as against 360 last year, is now 395. Capital expenditure rose from 2.69 to 3.85 trillion in 2021. The current jumped astronomically from 4.9 trillion from 2020 to 5.6 trillion in 2021. With the reality of the Nigerian economy today, this can be called miracle budget. Only miracle and prayers can allow us to achieve at least 30 to 40% because of the fund is not yet there. This is just like a proverbial farmer's adage who planted only 200 heaps and was expected to reap 400. He will only reap 200 fake yam. If we are sincere about this, since they call it budget of reality.
Time up.
Which is that I'm just started.
Look at it. 3 minutes.
Time up. We are just recovering from COVID-19. And the total debt was put at 4.28 trillion. How can we recover from increased debt all the time? My own contribution is we have to look seriously inward for our revenue generation agency, that we must monitor them so that we will not borrow money again to pay our debt. The more we pay, the more interest, and the more Nigeria is going into financial debt.
Time up.
Which is total liquidation.
Time up.
My take now is we have to improve funding on agriculture if we want to get out of this problem. Though security is very, very paramount, because when you go to the north, you see that war and crisis will not allow them to plant, particularly Borno, which we have gone to, so that at least we have enough. The capital fund allocated there is too small, very, very unrealistic. My advice to the federal government is that they should look inward, where you have revenue leakages up and down.
Time up.
So that they can have enough money.
Mr. President, may you protect us, please.
To finance all our budgets. Then the power is very, very paramount. Work and housing.
Please, distinguished Father, can you round up?
The Niger Delta Commission was giving only 64 billion to maintain peace there. Automatically, we have to maintain a lot of peace. The way we waste our other mineral resources, such as gold and diamond all over Nigeria, the individuals are just carrying away government has to look into it so that we will have enough revenue from our own minerals, solid mineral resources. With this, government should fund the budget within their means, not to continue to borrow money, so that we are not going to financial liquidation very soon. Thank you, my President and distinguished colleagues.
Thank you very much. Senator Oriolowo Aderele Adeyemi. Senator Oriolowo Aderele Adeyemi. Senator Ekon Ekenyi. Senator Impigi Barinada. Senator Bulus K. Amos. Senator Tolu Odebi. Senator Tolu Odebi, you have your name here. It's time for you to make your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm just going to say a few things. I believe a lot of our distinguished colleagues have said a lot over the 2020 budget. But I took a look at it and I just thought it would be nice to put it into context, because I believe that for this budget, we can easily get lost when we talk in numbers, in billions and percentages, and not realize that behind all these numbers, there are actually people behind them. Mr. President, let me start with the fundamentals, which I looked at here. We have a benchmark for the oil price of $40 a barrel, a daily production of 1.8 million, an exchange rate of 379, and a GDP growth rate of 3.0%. On the face of it, Mr. President, this doesn't look daunting. But when you look at the fact that we are coming from a contraction of about 6.1%, negative 6.1%, and we are hoping to go to 3.0% next year, I think that's a daunting challenge in this budget. Mr. President, I also did a quick analysis. I looked at the budget of 13 trillion naira, and I look at our population of 200 million. And I think when we break it down like that sometimes, maybe we can all see why a lot of people are agitating, why there's a lot of poverty in the land. If you look at the budget of 13.1 or so trillion naira, and you look at our population of 200 million, what that comes to is 65,000 naira per year, per capita, per person in Nigeria. And going by the current exchange rate, that also comes to about $144 for the year per person in Nigeria. I think when you look at that, I think that graphic now gives you a good idea that these are challenging times for the country and for the people in the country. Mr. President, for me, looking at the budget, I know that a lot of assumptions have been made here, but of concern to me is the fact that when you look at the recurring expenses and you look at the personnel cost, that makes about 76% of the budget. To me, that's a big challenge that we need to work hard and try and bring down. If we look at the personnel cost and even look at some of the recurring expenses, I was trying to figure out what percentage of people benefit from this amount. Assuming we are looking at about maybe 40 million Nigerians are benefit from the recurring expenses and all the personnel costs. So what we are saying in essence, that the remaining 160 million Nigerians are now going to leave off the remaining balance. That further highlights a lot of challenges for us in this country. Mr. President, I think for this budget, I think the critical issue is that even for the size of our country, it's still a relatively small budget. 13 trillion for a country for a population of 200 million is still relatively small, compared to Egypt that has a 57 trillion naira budget. But Mr. President, I think the critical thing for us, obviously, is how to expand our economy, how to reduce costs, how to bring down our recurring expenses, and also try to see how we can reset some of our priorities into more productive areas in order to stimulate the economy.
Time up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Round up, please.
And try to make it a better one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpeon, Senator Kabiriga, Senator Demka Hezekiah, Senator Isa Jibrin.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing Kogi East. Mr. President, I've gone through the budget, and I want to believe that it's a well thought out budget. But like you know, the problems we've had with budget implementation in Nigeria historically is the issue of revenue generation agencies. Most of the revenue generating agencies have never been able to make up to or actualize up to 20 to 30% of their revenue estimates. I want to believe that a priori, the assumptions behind those revenue estimates will be wrong. But these are tested technocrats, so we cannot assume that they don't know what they are doing. If you come up with assumptions underlining revenue estimates, you should be able to actualize at least 70%, realize at least 70% of what you have estimated that you want to do. I want to believe that there is a need this time around for the Committee on Finance and Economic Planning to engage the revenue generating agencies constantly, almost on a monthly basis. We want to see the level of the performance. And where we find out that a particular agency or some agencies are lagging far behind, we need to report promptly to the executive for possible sanctions. That is my immediate reaction. And I think at the end of the day, if we're able to do what I've said, engaging them constantly, we should be able to meet significant part of the revenue estimates for this year. And that will, of course, naturally downplay our the problems we've had in terms of deficit financing. Then with respect to loans, some people have said that the loans that we're going to take based on this budget is so significant. I want to believe that there is no harm in taking loans. The most important thing is that these loans are going to finance self-liquidating transactions that will at the end of the day generate revenue, that will at the end of the day pay off themselves. So I don't see any harm in taking loans. The loans are supposed to be meant for specific projects, and those projects are revenue generating projects and of course self-liquidating projects. On that note, I wish the best. I wish the country the best in terms of implementation of 2021 budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Theodore Ochendo.
Your Excellency, my distinguished colleagues, I want to approach my own debate from two angles. First is to look at the pros of the budget, and then to look at the cons. If I may start with the pros, I want to say that the budget was timely presented. And I want to commend the federal government for that. Secondly, the title of the budget is very apt. Budget of recovery and resilience, coming at a time when the pandemic is ravaging everywhere. And we can see that the pandemic has gone into a second phase in certain countries, but then we are resilient to that. That needs to be commended. I want to also commend the government for embarking on various projects, the ones that we have seen, especially from my region, the Second Niger Bridge, Enugu-Port Harcourt Road, Enugu-Onitsha Road, Umuahia-Aruchukwu Road. These are projects that are verifiable, and we commend the federal government for that. The budget proposal is inclusive. It does not exclude income from government-owned enterprises. That is another advantage. There are also some cost-saving things that are in the budget to make sure that we reduce cost. Then on the cons, also, our borrowing propensity is on the high side, and we should curtail that so that we don't go a borrowing and a sorrowing one day, because he who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing. Then in a situation where the recurrent expenditure is about 52.6% of the total budget, borrowing there is to sustain government and not to grow the economy, because it is to maintain recurrent expenditure. And as we borrow, we should also borrow knowledge from the lenders. Not only borrowing money and coming back, let us also borrow knowledge and come back and use that knowledge here. And to stop the economy from moving into another recession, the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan should urgently be implemented. That will stimulate the economy. There should be provisions in the budget for the regions to grow. Each region should grow its own economy so that the pressure at the center will be reduced. Since we use oil as a benchmark in this proposal of our budget, it will be more realistic if we prove our assumptions by using variables that we can control. And those variables are the production of oil, because we produce it, we can increase or decrease, instead of using variables that we cannot control, and that is cost of the oil, because we don't determine the cost. The cost is determined by forces of the market. The federal government also should use more of PPP in doing capital projects instead of borrowing. And to do that, we have to take care of our security. We have to control Boko Haram. We have to control kidnapping. We have to control cattle rustling. And that's the only thing that will make investors to be confident to come to our country, to come and invest. Excellency, at one point, we seem to forget these are girls. These are Chibok girls. It seems they're escaping our memory. I'm therefore suggesting that a subhead should be put in the budget. Recovery of Chibok girls. And some money put there specifically for them. Not giving money for security, and you will not determine how it goes. So that this money that is put there for Chibok girls will be utilized. And if we do that, we'll see that some of them will start recovering them. On that note, Your Excellency, These are the few things I want to contribute to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf. I represent Taraba Central. Mine is a general comments on the budget. I will start with paragraph number 7 of Mr. President, who said, we remain committed to implementing programs to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty over the next 10 years. So we spend colossal sums of money on capital budgets. Now this private sector that is benefiting from this capital budget, how much employment are they generating? Because that is very, very important, because if care is not taken, we have a big chunk of unemployment. And I want to suggest that making employment as a condition for award of contract, I don't know how it will fit well into the BPP. Number 2, I'm looking at, we had a decline of 6.1%, and then we are projecting probably a 3% growth in GDP. It is a task that appears to me a very, very challenging one, and it's difficult to achieve. Maybe along the line, we will review these numbers and see how realistic they will be. Now, tied to this, Mr. President, paragraph 39 of Mr. President. Mr. President said the infrastructure company, which I recently approved, will become a world-class infrastructure development vehicle, wholly focused on making critical infrastructure investments in Nigeria. This infrastructure company will raise funding from the Central Bank of Nigeria. It is a serious issue, sir. I don't know where Central Bank will get money to provide funding for the infrastructure company. I think rather than that, the source of funding that company should be the capital market, then the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, and the Africa Finance Corporation, maybe with pension funds. So including Central Bank, it will be more challenging to Central Bank, it will be more challenging to the monetary policy implementation. Paragraph 40. Under the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme, you see, for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been talking about this issue. Now the reality is dawning on us to have to use that. I talk about sectoral allocation of credits. But what I mean by that is we should have guided sectoral allocation of credit using tax incentives to banks. So if banks is financing agriculture, we can say, well, the tax on the revenue generated from loans and advances for agriculture, should be maybe a very low percentage. For the non-priority sector, we can attach a high tax rate on the income of banks. So the reality is coming. I started to talk about this so many years back, but the reality is dawning on us today. Coming to paragraph 46, the tax incentive to be based on priority sectors. So it is very, very important to determine what is our priority sector, maybe agriculture, maybe minerals, resources, and therefore the tax incentives should target those sectors so that we can have meaningful diversification away from the dependence on oil. Another issue, paragraph 59. You see, these government-owned enterprises, the government must have the political will to rationalize them into meaningful full privatization, full commercialization, partial commercialization, and then privatization. Because government is spending in 2021 a colossal sum of money of 625 billion on just government-owned enterprises, 50 of them. I think that amount should be rationalized to reduce it to the barest minimum by considering the commercialization and privatization of these government-owned companies. I come to paragraph 60 on capital expenditure. So the 336 billion for 60 government-owned enterprises. I think rather than that, we should work towards capitalizing these government-owned enterprises to make them more meaningful so that they can have their own capital and they should not rely on Treasury to fund their operations. Mr. President said, I will be providing the National Assembly a list of some of the most critical projects which we must work collectively to ensure they receive adequate funding. And I think it's very, very important, we remind Mr. President of this issue so that we can know, those critical projects that he's going to give us the list. I'm almost finalizing, Mr. President. Paragraph 70, I want to seize this opportunity to commend Mr. President for including, Mambila hydropower project and the Zungeru hydropower project in this 2021.
Time up.
I've just only 2 minutes. Finally, I want to talk about the issue of fair value of the Naira, and then, you see, sir, every aspect of our subsidies and what have you is tied to the fair value of the Naira. Until we can have a fair value of the Naira, we will continue to subsidize our operations in this country. And I did a motion just last week, and that is how we are going to arrive at a fair value of the Naira. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Abdullah Adamu. Ekiti United.
Masha.
Please allow it.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, I am Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and I represent Nasarawa West Senatorial District. My dear colleagues, I rise to make my very, very humble intervention on the subject matter of our debate, which is consideration of the budget of economic recovery and resilience as proposed by our dear President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. President, so many of our colleagues have made interventions on this budget. So much has been said, and I feel duty-bound to identify with the propensity of the proposals and interventions by my dear colleagues. You will all agree, as Mr. President indicated on the day of his presenting this budget to us, that the budget 2021 was prepared amidst global challenges in the domestic environments of all of the countries known to us. And the persistent effect that COVID-19 is taking on the tolls of our various economies, Nigeria's economy inclusive. Over and above that, we are contending, Mr. President, with the issue of dwindling fortunes on our oil revenue. And as you can see, even the benchmark, even the value of our currency is based on the value that the oil market apportions oil producers like Nigeria. And because of this terrible decline in the fortunes and revenue and the effect of this COVID-19 on our economy, we have got an economy that is virtually in recession. And the whole idea of the proposal we have is to see how best we can persevere and how best we can rise to the challenges, of the day. You will all recall that the MTEL that precedes the presidential budget was brought to us, and we unanimously passed the MTEL that ushers the budget that we are talking about. So I want to commend our colleagues under your leadership, Mr. President, for the very, very bipartisan attitude that we have seen in display. We have not seen any extreme positions taken by members of the Senate, whether they are with the ruling party or with the opposition party. This sense of unity, this accommodation of the realities of our day that is being shown by both sides of the aisle is most encouraging. And this has been possible also because of the kind of leadership that Mr. President has been giving, the National Assembly as the chairman of the National Assembly. It is one's hope that this spirit which we are having, which we have developed, will continue to galvanize our efforts in whatever we are doing in this chamber. With these few remarks, I want to lend my support to the provisions in the draft budget presented to us. As also submit, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Hadeja. Senator Peter Wabishi, my chairman.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Wabishi, representing Delta North. Mr. President, my first observation is to commend the present government for coming up with a budget early enough for us to discuss it and have a budget that will run through the year. And also to thank the leadership of the National Assembly for cooperating with the executive in that direction. Mr. President, a lot has been said by my colleagues about this budget. Mine is just to point out a few issues in the budget. First is the 63.5 billion allocated to NDDC. My contribution and observation to that is that it runs contrary to Section 14.2 of the NDDC Act, which is an act or law made by this National Assembly. The next that I would like us to look at is the exchange rate. The government is adopting 379 per dollar, and the parallel market is 460. This lower government rate will continue to promote current dual exchange rate regime and black marketing. So I would like the government to look at it and the appropriation committee in arriving at the show. Mr. President, if you look at the budget as presented to us, the total overhead cost for the MDAs is 625.50 billion in 2021. This is due mainly because of inclusion of new MDAs. And if we look at what the government has said, the government says that they have accepted the Oransayes report. And the Oransayes report, which they are supposed to implement, deals extensively on the issue of reducing the MDAs. So if we are going to spend up to 625.5, it will run contrary to the policy that the government has already started implementing. Mr. President, like I said before, the retention of the regulation of the price of petroleum products as well as the implementation of service-based electricity tariffs in the 2021 budget seems to overreach the discussion that is going on. If there are discussions that are going on with the Labour Congress and other trade unions are on, taking that position will seem to overreach a decision that will be reached finally on this issue. Mr. President, let me end by saying that if we borrow 4.28 trillion as envisaged in this budget, and in August 2020, the Budget Management Office put Nigerian total public debt at 79.3 billion as at March 31st, it will trigger more problem for the Nigerian economy. We should rather look more internally to finance our budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Chukwuka Utazi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Chukwuka Utazi. I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. Mr. President, being here and having listened to the budget as presented by Mr. President, a budget of 13.08 trillion, I want to say that Nigerians have high hopes as concerns this budget. The budget, last year's budget of 2020 was captioned budget of sustaining growth and job creation. This time around, we have moved to economic recovery and resilience. Mr. President, having chosen this exercise, chosen this title, I still want to say, Mr. President, that in as much as job creation is not in this team, and we know that that's the major challenge facing the society, the youths that are out there, I'll say that the job creation should still be a top priority of this government, especially in the paragraph 80 of the budget speech that deals with social investment program that takes care of the problems of the unemployed in our society here. If we do that religiously, Mr. President, it's going to help reduce youth restiveness, not only just in the southern part of Nigeria, but even in the north, that so many of our youths are ready hands for Boko Haram activities. Mr. President, I want to also talk about the looking at the paragraph 64, and we're talking about the housing, works and housing, where we have 404 billion for federal roads in this budget cycle. Mr. President, while this is very, very impressive, I come from the southeast of the southeast geopolitical zone of this country. I am begging, Mr. President, that there will be, we want a sustained effort in ensuring that the second Niger bridge that this government has done a lot should be completed within the budget cycle. I will not want this second Niger bridge to enter 2022 and then the election period. And once we know that once we get into election period, everything is will be directed how to ensure that we conduct 2023 elections. Mr. President, having said that much too, I'll also say that Enugu-Onitsha Road is a very major important road that connects us to Onitsha and then to the southwest. We want that road to be looked at so that it can get to Enugu and then freight our way to Enugu North Central District. I also want to say that 9-mile Macaulay Expressway, that is the link between us and the north. Efforts should be made to ensure that more money is given to that road, which dualization, the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing have started since 2018. That will be very, very important to me. And again, looking at the agriculture and rural development that we have 110 billion. It concerns the rural roads. We have 336 rural roads the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is undertaking. And one of such a road is the Nsukka, Obimo, Mpologu, Nimbo, Adani, Anambra border. That road is very, very important because we have a very major federal government investment in agriculture there, in Ada Rice and more in Anyamilum clan of Anambra State. If we do that, that road will be very, 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 if we ensure that during this budget cycle, that have enough resources made available for this road, it will go a long way in helping things for us. And the other issue is the water resources that has 153 billion in this cycle. The last year, the Federal Minister of Water Resources Minister made it a point of duty that he is choosing 5 dams in the country for completion, one of which is the Adada Dam. I am asking that in this budget cycle, that this should be carried to later so that we can get this done and done with, so that our people in my district will have a water supply in Nsukka metropolis and beyond. Mr. President, the other issue, because I'm the chairman of the committee on primary health and communicable diseases, the health under this budget we have 132 billion, a 157% increase. This is a welcome development following the coronavirus pandemic. And I want to say that having done this increasement, that we we that the Federal Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning should be releasing that money. The issue we have in the health institution have with this budget is we have approvals. You have approvals, but it's not funded. So we want this in this budget cycle, in order to make up for the dilapidated health infrastructure that is everywhere, and even the one the President agreed in the budget this year, of primary healthcare in all parts of the country, because majority of our people are living in the rural areas. We want the release of money to be a major priority. The wasting of time of the minister and his staff who go there and queue all the time does not help our work. That's the only way we can get things done and done good for our people. Mr. President, I also want to say that the Ministry of Interior, we have the NCDC, to have employment programs there. We want the money for the Interior Ministry to be released to handle so that we can the Nigerian Social Security and Civil Defense, we do the employment and give to the youth. We also want the Nigerian Immigration Service in the budget, the money released to help do the employment, that will help. And then the issue we have in employment in the police, that is the issue today. The Police Service Commission will say one thing, and then the IG's office will say another thing. The government should make effort to look in that direction, to settle all the issues that are delaying the employment of Nigerians. This is the only way we can reduce unemployment. If we will not, you have ready hands, like we have in MSAs that are all parts of the country moving. These are people who don't have things doing. We have to be serious about it and get things done for our people. That's very, very important. And then finally, Mr. President, I want to talk on the power generation. You cannot ask people to go and become self-employed. You cannot ask people to go and do things for themselves when you don't provide a level playing ground for them to do so. Electricity is very, very fundamental. That's why I brought a motion on addressing the energy needs of this country in this Senate, which we are still following with all the roundtables. And the chairman of the Senate Committee on the Power has brought a bill to that effect to solve all these problems. The only way we can help people to work in this country and generate income for themselves is when you have electricity. This is very, very important and fundamental. If you ask them to buy gas to power their gens in order to produce, they will never do so. And when all those people try, they don't have anything doing again, they will either be on the streets or they join the ready army of politicians for everything, and then things worsen for the country. Let us do well with this budget. If we do so, we will make a headway in this 2021 budget. And all the dreams and aspirations as enunciated, Mr. President, will be actualized. Mr. President, I thank you so much for this opportunity.
The Civil Senator Surajuddin Ajibola Abasir.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished senators. First and foremost, I think the budget being presented at this time is still in line with the decision to have a predictable budget cycle, and I hope we'll also be able to make it this year. First, my own observation would be that most of the time we talk about the expenditure aspects of budget, but as it were, looking at this present budget, it keeps to the mind the precarious state of the finances of our country. So I would say that as a National Assembly, working with the executive, we need to take serious the issue of revenue to finance our budget. As it were, if we keep on dealing with deficits and a budget with huge amount of money accumulating year in, year out to servicing debt and making provisioning for additional debt, in the long run, it may not be in the national interest. And I think it's also important to comment on the sustainability or otherwise of the deficit and the debt and the financing. Yes, in paragraph 50 of the President budget, he made allusion to the fact that 3.64% to GDP is the 5.2 billion deficit, and that coronavirus poses an essential challenge to the country. I think it's very important to clearly advert to Section 12 of Fiscal Responsibility Act, which provided, yes, that the threshold of 3% could be extended where there is the president of opinion there is threat to national security. But the question is that this was not aptly captured and properly explained in paragraph 50 of that statement. Is the president invoking that provision that's an exception to in section 12? And also the National Assembly appeared to, since last year, gloss over whether there's any need to amend that section 12. Because the section 12 gives latitude to the National Assembly to determine what level of sustainability that will be allowed beyond the 3%. I think in order not to create a lacuna, the necessary committees should look at the appropriateness of section 12 of Fiscal Responsibility Act. Beyond this, and it has been said, is that this our budget, beyond the MTF and the fiscal strategy paper, what is the planning projection upon which it is based? We cannot year in, year out be making a budget without a long-term, medium-term plan as to what we want our country to be. For instance, yes, we have an addition of 1.15 trillion over the capital projection for last year, but this still fell short of the projected capital expenditure that is required. And without massive capital investment, the question of even expanding our revenue base will also be challenging. But be that as it may, the aspect of putting 420 billion to expand the social investment project is commendable. However, we must be able to monitor as a National Assembly how this 420 billion is expended to have real effects on the vulnerable in the society. We have had this social investment program, but in terms of real practical effect, there are still challenges in our finance constituencies as to whether it has the necessary effect. Another very important issue that has been examined is the question of the recurrent expenditure. We have a 13 trillion budget, and far in excess of 8 trillion is going to debt recurrent expenditure and non-debt recurrent expenditure. This is clearly unhealthy. So I would want the National Assembly working with the executive, let us look at the structure of our governance. Let us look at our MDAs and see to what extent do they even have key performance index and deliverable to justify the huge investment in overhead and personnel expenditure. If this is done, coupled with an aggressive revenue generation effort and monitoring leakages in our revenue, I think coming to 2022, we will have a more conservative budget that is in line with financial sustainability of our country. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Barinada Ntegi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ntegi Barinada, I represent the people of Rivers Southeast Senatorial District. Mr. President, I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, firstly, I think I have to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for submitting this budget on time, and I also have to thank the leadership of the National Assembly for this cooperation with the President. Mr. President, this appropriation bill perhaps will be one of the most lesser in terms of performance. Let me start by saying the uncertainty is there because of COVID-19 that we just passed through. Mr. President, the following are the assumptions that I think is available and that we need to quickly check in terms of this 2021 budget. Firstly, the commitment to the percentage increase in terms of the GDP, and also the exchange rate that we peg at 379. Mr. President, this exchange rate is one of such index we have to quickly check. Then the 2021 budget also, especially in terms of the expenditure of about 13.0 trillion, is one of the areas because I think looking at what is available as the deficit of 5.20 trillion is one of the index that we have to also quickly check. Mr. President, my most concentration will be on the side of unemployment. unemployment in the sector, firstly, the money we are sending into the social sector, the money we are putting into this National Directorate of Employment, I think this, especially the creation of jobs, of the 774,000 jobs for the youth, Mr. President, is of my opinion that this job, instead of just being a halfway job, it should be a job that will give a production level, especially in agriculture, to the youth. If 774,000 youth are employed all over the country on a permanent level, this money that we tend to put into the National Directorate for Employment, Mr. President, I think that money should be channeled to the Ministry of Agriculture. If this money is channeled into the Ministry of Agriculture, there will be production of food stuff. And Mr. President, these same people will have permanent employment instead of something on a social and a casual level. I think if such is done, Mr. President, it will be sustainable. And if it is sustainable, it is to a way of alleviating and stopping this unemployed youth from just moving or maybe any salary for doing nothing. Time up, time up. I want to thank you, Mr. President. But the truth about this is that more of our attention in terms of this budget should be directed towards this unemployment in the country, because everything we are doing, if we don't employ our youth, we turn to more protests on the street. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator.
Go ahead.
Senator Kabirga.
Thank you. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Kabiru Gaya, represent the people of Kano South from Kano State. Mr. President, my colleagues have spoken a lot on this budget presented by Mr. President. And I believe the efforts made by the President are worthwhile in view of the situation we're in, or the financial crunch. So from the budget, Your Excellency, I have to commend the President of the Republic of Nigeria, President Buhari, on the input of infrastructure. I could remember in those days before this government came into office, the budget on works was about 28 billion. When Buhari came in, he jacked it to 220 billion for Ministry of Works. The second year, we went to 300 billion. For this year, which is current budget now, it's about 420 billion for works projects. I'm aware that as a former chairman, we're able to visit some of the major projects like the Bode Boni Road, which is about 120 billion, which is almost close to the cost of Kano to Abuja. And then the second Niger Bridge was, the foundation was laid those days, that means those other administration. When we came in now, the project was 70%. We were able to cross from the one end across the river, the Onisha Bridge, we crossed to the end of the other town in Onisha. So therefore the project is going on and is successful. The Kano-Abuja road is going on, but we have problems of delays on the road and a lot of go slow and traffic on that road. So I believe the projects on infrastructure is going on. The other one to sustain the economy is the issue of poverty alleviation to the community of Nigerians. And that's helping a lot, whereby some people are getting opportunities to have a start in their business. Some were given 300, 500 million, 500,000, 10 million, and so on, for them to start their business. And I'm sure that effect is also helpful. The other palliatives which this government is doing is also to contain the problem of unemployment. Secondly, Mr. President, this budget is about 30% capital project and 70% recurrent. Therefore, there is a need for us to improve on reducing our cost on recurrent and put it more on capital so that Nigerians can benefit the dividends of democracy. But so far, so good. With the current situation, the budget is okay, and we'll continue to support. We'll have to do our oversight well to make sure that this project that we put in the budget are executed accordingly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, Senator, you make your contribution? Senator Yakubu Hussain, did you make your contribution? You want to make? Okay, you'll be the last. I didn't see your name, so you'll be the last.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Yakubu Hussain, representing Kogi Central. Mine is just on two major issues. First and foremost, I would like to commend Mr. President for timely submission of the budget, and also commend ourselves, the Ninth Senate, for attending to the budget promptly and for setting the record straight, January to December budgeting process. In the budget, I can see that the Ministry of Works and Housing is one of the priority ministry, which is quite commendable, which is capital mostly. And it's an observation. Trunk A road is trunk A road. I want to know, and I want to advise that those in charge of monitoring or viewing the award of the contract, if you see the road from Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Road, and Abuja, Lokoja, or Kede Road, you can see that they are the same truck A road and dual carriage. Even though the timeline has expired all this while, over 10 years the road is on. And if you see the quality, the thickness of the road, you cannot compare these two roads. That is Abuja Lokoja Road and Abuja Kaduna Kano Road. So whatever measure they are using, well, I don't really know. It's something that the Committee on Works and Housing has to look into if they go on their oversight. So they'll confirm what I'm saying. Then secondly, Mr. President, sir, it's on taking loan to sponsor budget. You see, as far as I'm concerned, if you take 2020 and you see, you can see that the capital expenditure has not actually been utilized fully. All I'm trying to say in essence is that instead of borrowing to finance budget, why don't we do a balanced budget? Do with what you have. We have to do with what we have. So that instead of budgeting, and at the end of the day, you are financing 50% of your budget. So that shows you are just covering a lot of things. So instead of budgeting and financing 50% of it, why don't you budget for that 50% that you have as your 100%, as far as I'm concerned? So we should reduce the idea of borrowing for sponsoring budgets. I don't really subscribe to it. So let's make do with what we have, and more attention should be focused on capital than the recurrent, because in a situation where every year in, year out, the recurrent is always outweighing the capital, it means that we are still a consuming nation, not a productive nation. So I think we need to look into that while we are preparing the budget. We have to shift the paradigm this time around. Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much. Senator Abraham Dambaba.
Thank you, Mr. President. My dear colleagues, my name is Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Dambaba, and I represent Sokoto South Senatorial District. Mr. President, sir, if one takes into cognizance the assumptions and the parameters upon which these budget projections were made, one will have some kind of worry. The worry revolves around the margin of deficit, with a budget of about 13 trillion, and then a deficit of 5.19 trillion. The deficit is about 3.65% of the GDP. This threshold goes beyond the maximum that has been set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So one begins to wonder whether we are operating within the limit of law, because the Act prescribes that the maximum should not exceed 3%. But here we are today with a margin of 3.65%. Mr. President, sir, one other issue which one has to take into cognizance also is the fact that year in, year out, each time a budget is made, annual budget, only a fraction of that budget is implemented. So we must look at the institutions that are responsible for the preparation of the budget itself, because something is fundamentally wrong. You cannot make a budget of, say, 10 trillion and then end up releasing or funding only 50% of that budget. For a very long time now, Mr. President, the recurrent budget performance has always been less than 70%, while that of capital revolves between 50 to 60%. I made an investigation, carried out an investigation in the 8th National Assembly, which has to do with the 2016 budget implementation process. I made inquiries with the Debt Management Office, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, the Federal Ministry of Finance, and I discovered, Mr. President, that all the revenue projections, the aggregate that were made, were actually crystallized. But what happened? Only 60% of that budget was implemented. So there must be some kind of leakage from the revenue that has already been accrued. Somehow, somewhere, there must have been leakage, which resulted into the fact that this budget was not implemented. So, Mr. President, I want to say that we here in the Hello Chamber, we have responsibility to ensure that we carry out proper oversight, especially committees on appropriation, finance, and national planning. Because what this reflects is a position of leakages. These leakages need to be investigated. And the only way they can be investigated is when we carry proper oversight. We have to put more efforts in ensuring that we carry out proper oversight.
Secondly, Mr. President, there is this issue of projects, capital projects, that are normally reflected in the budget. For instance, there is a project within my own constituency for which I spent about 3 years trying to see to it that that project is brought on board in the budget. It was eventually, and a contract for 5.2 billion was awarded 2 years back. To this point, as I speak, Mr. President, only a sum of 380 million was made available. So what is the need of including projects year in, year out when we know that we do not carry out those projects? So, Mr. President, I think there is need for us to make sure that projects that are ongoing are implemented, and as much as possible limit ourselves to the completion of those critical capital projects than bringing in new ones for political expediency. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank all of you for the various contributions on the debate on the general principles of the 2021 appropriation bill. Certainly, the last 3 days, we've witnessed various submissions raising issues about the budget estimates presented to us by Mr. President. So I congratulate and commend each and every one of us. Let me also commend the executive, particularly Mr. President, for presenting the budget in the month of October, the first week of October, let me say on the 8th specifically of October. This is the continuation of our effort to ensure that the desirable cycle that we have taken the budget, the annual budget of January to December, will be a legacy. This will be our legacy as a National Assembly, as the 8th National Assembly, and the legacy of Mr. President himself, that together we are able to do this thing together. And there's definitely a difference in the implementation of the 2020 budget compared to the others. Some ministries or some projects have received up to 75% of funding. There is none that had received less than 50%. While this may not be exactly what we want, but it's still an improvement, and we are going to continue to urge the executive to implement the budget 2020 up to 100%. But I believe that we have seen the benefit of passing the budget in good time. And this is something that we'll continue to do, because it's something that should be given to us as one of those things we're able to achieve in this current National Assembly. Like all of us, I also have some observations. Firstly, I think our revenue generation, collection and remittances have to be better. There are many agencies of government that are supposed to be generating revenues, and they do so, but they don't remit everything that they're supposed to remit. We must be interested in this, and we have to be up and doing. I agree with one of the submissions that we need to engage, that was Senator Issa Jibrin, the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Finance, that probably we should have a monthly engagement with revenue generating agencies so that we keep tab on what they are doing. If they are meeting the targets, we encourage them to do even better, to go beyond the targets. If they are not meeting the targets, why are they not meeting the targets? Is it a problem that we can solve here through legislative intervention, or is it an encumbrance that the executive need to address? But we should be able to work hard on the revenues. The revenues, when we're able to get more revenues, we will reduce the deficit. Because this budget has a big deficit, and this is because we simply have no resources as of today. And we have to have the infrastructure. So the choice is for us to diversify the funding, the financing of the projects. We may not do completely without borrowing, but we could do diversification of the sources of funding. We could go for PPP like many of senators here suggested, so that we reduce the necessity to borrow. But whatever it takes, we have to provide infrastructure in this country. Otherwise, we will never move beyond where we are. And therefore, I urge the executive to, like all of us here did, together with us, look into other sources of funding our infrastructure. The responsibility of the National Assembly, the Parliament, is to ensure that whatever we appropriate is properly, economically, and efficiently applied. This is an oversight function that we have to continue to do. Yes, we have COVID challenge, but we have to be inventive, we have to be ingenious. How do we oversight? Because we have to oversight. The remaining 2-3 months to the end of the year, we still have a function of oversight. In fact, before we pass the 2021 budget, we should be able to know how much of the 2020 budget has been implemented. And this is because some projects need to be rolled over to 2021. So we need to know the extent to which they have been funded in the 2020 financial year. I'm sure that this is something that we can do because it has been a function that we have been doing long since the establishment of this parliament. So we need to up our game in that respect. But let me emphasize that on the whole, this budget is aimed at consolidating what we are achieving in the 2020 budget. And of course, we have complained about the ratio between the recurrent and the capital. This has been a nagging problem. We cannot achieve it in a day because we can't just wake up one morning and say 50% should go to recurrent, 50% to capital. We have so many agencies of government, we have so many commissions and agencies, and I agree with most of us who said we need to look into the cost of running government. And I think either it is a Resenya report or indeed any other report or what we could on our own work on, we need to look at the possibility of merging some of these agencies that have outlived their usefulness. Because some of them, or many of them, were created to address specific challenges at the time they were created. Now, such challenges may not exist. And therefore, it is necessary that we look into the possibility of getting some of them merged so that we're able to save the cost of running systems that we don't need anymore. That does not stop us from creating new ones, though, because the new ones, when we create them, they are meant to address specific challenges of today. So we need to balance between what we already have. So many of them, over 700 agencies, commissions, many of them we don't need, but we still have some agencies that we need to create to address some issues of relevance today. Finally, I want to urge the two chambers, the Senate and the House of Reps, to work together very closely to work on the details of this budget, especially the budget defense. I believe that we can pass this budget just like we did last year before we go on Christmas break. It will be quite helpful to the National Assembly for the committees of the Senate and the House to work together to ensure that we're able to reduce the time that we need for harmonization and other processes that could delay the passage. But this is our baby, that we have been able to reverse this budget cycle that used to be very unpredictable, and we must protect this very important legacy that we have to leave for this country. at the end of the life of this National Assembly. On Tuesday next week, we will be taking the debate on the petroleum industry bill. This is going to be the last function that we'll have to do in plenary on Tuesday. We'll suspend plenary on Tuesday for the budget defense processes to start immediately. Last year, Mr. President, President Muhammad Buhari gave specific orders that no minister or indeed any chief executive should travel out of the country or anywhere else without defending the budget of his or her ministry or agency. I'm sure that directive has remained in the clouds, but in fact the President even repeated a more serious one, this in his address to us at the retreat, that all ministers and heads of agencies of government must come and defend the budget in person. He used the word in person. So we are waiting for them from next week, and like last year, we'll have a program. The program will take the remaining part of October, maybe the 2 or 2.5 weeks of October, and the first week of November. This will be the only window, and nobody should assume that after this period, a minister or any head of agency will come to the National Assembly to defend any budget. If a ministry is not able to defend its budget by the end of the first week of November, then that ministry should forget about coming to the National Assembly for budget defense. The National Assembly will perform that is constitutional function of just working on the budget proposal in the best interest of our people. And then finally, again, let me wish all of us a very restful weekend. But I will not close this remark without again saying something on the current situation in the country. Nigerians have reacted to the situation of the SARS, those of the SARS elements who did not perform their functions constitutionally. We lost some people in the process. Some SARS members killed some people, some of our citizens, especially the youth. Some were maimed, and Nigerians protested or are protesting. This is their right. Government has listened. Government has accepted to look into all the issues. It is now mandatory on government to swiftly implement what it has willingly accepted as issues presented by those protesters, their demands. As for the continuing protest, since we have been able to make our point and government had accepted, then I think there is no need to continue the protest. We should allow government to implement the demands that it had accepted from the protesters. To do otherwise is to make it even difficult or even impossible for government to really do these things in good time. We should hold government responsible when we give it the opportunity to do those things that it say it will do and it fails. But I urge our youth, our protesters, that we should give government the chance to implement the demands that it had accepted from our protesters. Lastly, we pray that things calm down. This is our country, and there's nothing anybody from anywhere would do better than us to make this country better. But we need to be together. Politics should be out of any issue at the moment. It's governance. We have to save our country. We have to serve our people. And my hope and prayer of the Senate and the National Assembly is that every leader in this country at any level of any persuasion should support government to make sure that government is able to deliver on those demands of our protesters. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected executive colleagues, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished chamber to pass this second reading of the 2021 budget as proposed. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 13,882,420,568,233 naira only, of which 484,488,471,273 naira only for the statutory transfer, 3,344,380,000,000 naira only for debt service, 5,649,872,137,888 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 3,603,679,959,070 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021, SB 523, second reading.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 13,820,568,000.
Yes. Ready to listen to us. Yes. So we end up calling on the press people.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 13,820,568,233 naira only, of which 488,488,471,273 naira only is for statutory transfers. 3,344,380,000,000 naira only is for debt service. 5,872,137,888 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 3,639,679,959,070 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021. Second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Appropriation to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, having come to the end of our deliberations and issues on the order paper, I move that this Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 20th October 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday, 20th October 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt say aye. Those against say nay. The Senate is hereby adjourned till Tuesday, 20th October 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. Thank you.